a very good morning to you. This is what you call the morning after. We hope you had a good day yesterday as we celebrated our 60th anniversary of independence. There was activity all over the country, particularly in Port of Spain during the day and in the evening. Well, we hope you got through that in the way that you wanted to. But thank you very much for being up this hour to take us through this day, 1st of September 2022. Well, let's tell you what's coming down on the program this morning on AM Prime. We're talking with Michael Prentice, and we want to tell you from now, this is an exclusive discussion we're going to have with him because he's decided not to speak with anybody else before he spoke with us, and we're going to do that this morning. Of course, Mr. Prentice is the leader of the party that signed for the 4% increase with the CPO, the Amalgamated Workers Union. They're calling him all kinds of names in the fraternity and the sorority, that is the labor movement in the country. We'll talk with him over that as to what led him to do that at this point. Also, we're talking with a young leader, Nikolai Edwards. He's asking the question as to what's the future for people in the youthful age groups at this point after 60. We will talk with him over that, what he expects, what he's putting forward. And in the second hour, we're talking with Ambassador Sergei Kizlytsia. He's the Ukrainian ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. He's based in New York, but he's here at the moment. He came in, he said, among other things, to observe our 60th anniversary of independence. Of course, you know, the Ukraine is, well, it's under pressure from the invasion of its territory by Russia, and Trinidad and Tobago has pledged its support to the people and the government of Ukraine. So we'll talk with him in the second hour of the program. Of course, we have some of the staples, the Newsday poll, the question and responses, and our look around the region. We have a couple of stops that we will make. We'll see how we go with that. But those things and more on the program this morning, so stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Multiple sclerosis is a chronic inflammatory condition affecting the central nervous system.
Being with someone who has MS, you have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of faith.
It's difficult to diagnose until I was even in Mount Hope Hospital for about 3 weeks.
So I was sitting here, all of a sudden you feel like somebody trying to pound some needles or a nail under your foot. That is so painful.
Unfortunately, there is no cure for MS at this point in time.
MS creeps upon you. So I had one attack, and by 4 years after that, I had the second attack, and then they said yes to MS.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Welcome back to the program. Well, they say he's a sellout. They call him, they say that they are disappointed. Some of the trade unions in the trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago, and those descriptions are being attached to Mr. Michael Prentice. He's the leader of the Amalgamated Workers Union, and they settled for 4% from the CPO in these negotiations with the government and unions representing workers in the public sector. He's here to defend his position and defend himself. That is moments from now. But just let's tell you some of what else is happening in the paper this morning. Well, let's tell you what's happening with the Newsday. We show you the front page of the Newsday. Tobago, the story is vacate by September 15th or be evicted. That's the latest, or evicted. That's the latest with the government and the people who are resisting the attempts to relocate them for the completion of the works around the, what is the ANR Robinson International Airport. They are saying that they're not getting as good a bargain or a position as they expect and as they should be for them to move, relocate from there, and they're fighting that. The THA says that they're on the side of those workers. This is what's on the back page of the Newsday this morning. That's Newsday Tobago. In the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago, well, pictures on both front and back about yesterday's activities around Port of Spain and elsewhere as we celebrated our 60th anniversary. Much inside there to read this morning. That's how we came through that, 60 years and counting. But let's take a look around the region. Let's begin with a look around the region. Now we go to the Bahamas, where the government is said to be engaging in minimum wage talks with the workers representing, with the unions representing the workers there. How interesting that is, how connected that is to what we're talking about here these days. There's this report from Barbados today. Let's take a look.
Talks on a new minimum wage between the Bahamian government and unions intensify. Bahamians are hoping the two sides will settle on a figure that takes into account the high cost of living.
Workers could possibly see an increase in minimum wage before year's end. Now, while government remains locked in conversations with various stakeholders on what the new minimum wage could be, Trade Union Congress President Obi Ferguson telling a local daily that government would likely approve a $50 increase to the current figure, bumping it up to $260. But would that be enough for private sector workers? These residents do not seem to think so.
No, I think it should be $300. People working hard, everything going up. The cost of living is, going up. $300.
I think it should be more than at least $300 per week, because everything in this food store expensive. Let's go to the food store, 4 items, $40.
Former Labor Minister Shane Gibson also contending that $260 is simply not enough.
I think a $300 minimum wage at this time is really fair for employees. For too long, employees have been getting the short end of the stick. And when you look at what it costs to live there, the cost of, you heard the other day Rupert Roberts say the cost of the price of food going up, the price of fuel went up significantly. Everything is going up right now. So I think it's unreasonable for anybody not to want to give, not everything the employees want, but certainly make it more comfortable.
Meanwhile, these residents say that while an increase at this time is a step in the right direction, they say government needs to take into consideration the mounting challenges that they're faced with.
Rent going up, everything else going up. Everywhere you go, everything going up. So give us a break, man. Give us a break. Give us $350, please.
It'll never be enough. But it's a step in the right direction, right? But it's never enough because the cost of living every time the price going up.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about the minimum wage in that country known as the Bahamas. We're talking here about wages to meet the expectations of workers more than 8 years since there have been new salaries in the country. Well, they're calling this man a sellout. They say that they're disappointed in his action. He's Michael Prentice, leader of the Amalgamated Workers Union in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of his membership are people who work for the government on a daily paid basis in the Port of Spain City Corporation. He signed an agreement with the CPO to accept the 4% salary increase that is on the table at the moment. We're talking about that this morning. We want to tell you that this is the first place he's talking with anybody in the public about it. We appreciate his decision to do that with us. We've been trying to have a discussion with him for some time now, even outside of these arrangements, given the nature of the workers that this union represents. But he's here with us this morning. Good to see you, sir.
And good morning again to you, Andy, and to the listening public.
All right, let's get into the issue. First of all, it was interesting to me, newsworthy to me to see in one of these reports that so you all had met on 5 occasions, the CPO said. That is not a sense that is out there as to the length of time and the number of occasions on which the unions have been meeting with him or he's been meeting with them. 5 occasions.
Yes, and these occasions, Andy, and to the listening public, you have to understand the situation that all of us face, and we represent workers within an industry. We didn't just get up one morning and take a position to just go and sign, because this wasn't just a normal signing or anything like that. We would have been engaging with the other unions at this juncture, and what has happened is that the situation is at a stalemate where no one is moving from their position. In some instances, the unions has not come to propose to the government offer at this juncture, the CPO's offer. And as a union and responsible union, we felt that we need to look objectively as what are the challenges that we face, the country face, the unions face, and so on, and identify how we can move forward. What we would have engaged in is having some conversation with the CPO in questioning precisely what are the positions and what possibly might be reach a conclusion as to bring closure to our situation. So we would have signed independently of all others.
You say that in some cases, some of your colleague leaders representing the unions that they do have not counter-proposed anything to the CPO?
No, what they would have placed on the table is from the inception what the offer would have been. But all we were engaging in at going at the CPOs is just simply saying we're not accepting that. And the fact of the matter is, this is why it is called negotiations. And since they were not prepared to engage in negotiations and engage more in a hate campaign, as it were, that don't solve the problems of the workers that we represent. That don't solve the problems of the workers across the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. If you're just engaging in saying, I'm not accepting that, but then what is your position? And nobody seemed to want to put a position more than engage in a campaign that does not satisfy the membership or the workers that we represent.
Yeah. The leader of the National Union of Government Workers, for instance, Government and Federated Workers, he's saying in one of these pieces here that, well, you sort of went back on your word because you had...
no, I didn't. And Andy, I want to make this abundantly clear to the listening public. I did not go back on my word. Their suggestion was when I called them, they didn't call me. I called the 3 federations in terms of JTOM, which is Ozzy Warwick. I called Ermini Big Mead from San Fernando, and I called Comrade Lambert. And in the first instance, when I spoke to Lambert, Lambert said he cannot change our position if we decide that we want to move forward and move away, but he asked for a meeting, and I gave them a meeting. I don't believe. You see, this is the unfairness in this whole exercise. They believe when they say jump, we must say how high. In the past, we would have invited Comrade Lambert to discussions when we were campaigning as an organization. For over 3 to 4 years, we was campaigning. And what our campaign was? Our campaign was informing the membership. And I seek a mandate from our membership as it relates to moving forward with a negotiation process. Yeah. The challenges that we have, Andy, and I would have recognized this as a union since 2016, as it relates to what the situation is in the economy. We can't just look at it in a small through a small lens to really and truly understand the challenges that are faced by a country. We must also look at that, because at the end of the day, we all have to live here. And what do? Take a position and ask for something that we very well know. It's a lie to the membership. This is what they are engaging in. Right. And Lambert refused to come with us.
All right, so he's quoted in yesterday's Express as saying, he said, while Prentice was saying he strongly rejects the 4% offer, he was having separate meetings with the CPO and his executive about accepting the offer. He said he went behind our backs, and that is what you call a traitor. The other public sector unions have indicated to me that under no circumstances, so on and so on. But he's saying that you were saying one thing in their presence and you do something behind
that is absolutely not correct. In the last instant occasion that we was at the CPO, I asked them, why are we coming here? If we were only coming here to be given a proposal by the CPO stating this is the final position. And there and then is when I felt, as a union leader, to call our executive and start having conversations first with our executive in looking objectively at the situation that is before us. They all know not 1 cent more will be paid and the matter will be taken to court. And we have a history of experiences that point us for which in the past we would have rejected a number of things that is offered by the CPO. It ends in the court, and in some instances we didn't get anything further, or in some instances we get far less than what was being proposed in the first instance. And when you're a leader in an organization, you must weigh every piece of what is in front of you and the challenges that is before you in making a decision. We would have gone through with our executive, we would have gone through in the past several occasions with our members of the Port of Spain Corporation. While in this last instant here, over the last week or two, we did not, and I don't have to come and say something contrary, but we had a mandate to go ahead and negotiate. Members were meeting us and saying, listen, deal with this problem, this is not making sense. We are 9 years behind. We are still working on 2013 salary. Had I agreed and continued to be a donkey for these comrades to ride, it would have been okay.
So there's been no uprising of any kind among your membership or
absolutely
the bargaining unit for this?
No, absolutely not. Andy, even if we had signed 7%, the same response you are getting from some of my past colleagues is the same type of behavior they would have engaged in. And we felt that something has to give. We cannot continue with this. This is not healthy for our workers.
So you say past colleagues. You mean
yeah, past colleagues.
This is an indication of a rupture in the solidarity among you all?
It is, Andy. And we have long days ahead. I have received threats of all sorts in terms of how members, how past colleagues see me within few hours.
I saw this story about receiving threats and insults.
Yeah,
so what do you mean?
But Andy, I am strong. I am strong and I'm resilient in the stance that was taken by the Amalgamated Workers Union. I will defend it to the ilk because it's the correct decision to be made at this point in time, given the circumstances that we all face. This is not just about Amalgamated.
Your position is that you think there's not going to be an advance on this 4%?
Not 1 cent. And we have covered every area. We did not do as how they are accusing me now as a Judas. They are more Judas than I am. The fact is today they're on one corner doing something, and then the next day they're on the next corner doing something else. Had we been a big, massive, strong 30,000 membership, they would have responded. But they never give support when Amalgamated was negotiating. They never, even the Cusbod from San Fernando, even when they were called and had conversation, they left our halls and went back and do absolutely nothing. Amalgamated was on the Huskins for the last 3 to 4 years, and this must not be forgotten.
So at this point, you're saying that the union, and you have no problem with that, is out of any one of these groups that you would have been a part of?
Most definitely. We are not bothered by that. The life goes on. We have a membership for which we seek from time to time, have conversations, have a mandate and so on with varying issues. But Andy, just recently the oilfield workers, when Roger were negotiating with the refinery, they have to banker. He has to banker. When he was negotiating, I have done better and far better than Roger. Roger was asked to go and negotiate for his members. Let Roger tell the listening public, if he had negotiated for his members, he didn't. He made up his mind he's not going to negotiate. What they receive as a settlement is what the state offered. Roger didn't go and negotiate for nobody. I have confirmed information of hundreds of individuals who left Petrochin and received not 1 cent. Roger is out there now fighting all over the place because what he should have done then, he is now trying to do it by going and march all over.
I want to to come to, I want to make a point about the kinds of workers that your union represents, which I think is exemplary. You're talking about funeral attendants and drivers at funeral agencies, cooks and counter staff at some of the fast food joints in the country, Royal Castle, and so on, cleaners at the East Side Plaza and the New City Mall, Port of Spain. So they are workers always on.
And how long, Andy, could we go on with this? These are workers suffering, already suffering. The claim by some of these colleagues is that these workers across the spectrum are suffering. What are we doing? We are engaging in politicking. We are engaging in something far outside the negotiation process. We simply feel, look, we have no time for this. We have a responsibility to our members. Deal with the problems that is affecting our members. They have not supported us in the past. We have fought on our own. We continue to fight on our own. And now today, they want to call people names because of the fact that they believe everybody is like them. They could do what they want, and they won't listen to nothing we have to say. And if even they listen, they put it in the waste paper basket. I have witnessed it both at Natuk, and I have witnessed it when I left Natuk and went to JTM. Two of the same. And the fact today, same coin. The fact today that they want to call people names, they need to look in the mirror. When Roger take a position, disrespectful as it was, create a mannequin, disrespecting the past prime minister and today the opposition leader, what Roger believe? That what he is doing will now find favor with them? They will never forgive him.
It's interesting, it's revealing that you make that point, because I look at it in this way. So he called the former prime minister, opposition leader, as corrupt, and he said that is why they were breaking away from that alliance they had with the government. But he's on the front page of the paper speaking into her ears. What is he telling her?
This is what I'm saying. And now he believes when they took the position to go asking for support from the former prime minister, I am one of the only one objected and say, well, you making me feel to apologize to Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessor, because the type of things that we engage in, stating it as a fact. And then today you go now again by the former prime minister talking secret. Did he seek a mandate from his membership to do that? They speak him on mandate. When he was doing what he was doing, did he seek a mandate? Did he seek a mandate not to negotiate? They do what they want.
I'm trying to understand the increase and so on. Is it, from some of what I read here and in the criticisms, is it the 4% is for the entire period, 2013 to now, or is it for the various periods of negotiation?
Only up to 2019. And we did not sign 4% flat groups. It had other benefits there. Andy, let me just say something to you and to the listening public. Our workers, the members that we represent in this arena, are at the bottom of the spectrum. Our union not in a financial position to assist in a real way when workers need assistance to go to various institutions and to develop their skills and so on. This formed part of the signing. We negotiated for this. While on the table, there were no cover for the workers who retired. We put something on the table to get an agreement, a position. We negotiated for it. That would have gone back and forth before the decision was arrived at. So when people make reference to that, it is untrue. We negotiated for scholarships at Cipriani Labour College. We also negotiated for technical skills training development through MIC and Swinzuela. We negotiated for these things for our members because our members were not were left at a huge disadvantage as it relates to all else. We could not, as a union in any good conscience, sit down and get an opportunity such as this to bargain with the CPO in order to bring something else on the table. This is what we would have engaged in. This had I hear some past colleagues making reference to inducements. Well, yes, if you want to call what I did an inducement, I'm guilty. But in no way, at no time, have this Commonwealth apprentice has ever once sat with anyone outside or inside and make any deal. We're not accustomed to that.
Yeah, when they say inducement, what do you mean? Like something for yourself?
Yeah, that is what those things is what they're trying to claim and say how probably I was offered something. And I am saying yes, I was offered betterment for the workers by negotiating for it. They didn't give me, they didn't hand it on a platter and say, here, we will give you this. We negotiated, we wrote to them.
I think it's Mr. Roger saying that these increases will amount to $47 a fortnight for your members.
That is not true, Andy. You see, this is the type of mind game and deceitfulness and hypocritical behavior of these colleagues. It's like when they say any monkey can't get the grapes, he said it's sour. Had we remained there, sit down, let them continue to ride the Amalgamated Workers Union and disrespect the membership. When they call me a Judas, I am not one person that make up the signing party. So is it they are calling all the other individuals Judas? We make a conscious decision and look out for our members because they are not doing it, Andy. What they are doing is they get on a hate campaign. How many times was you shutting down Trinidad? Let's be real, Andy. I recall in a meeting with the past Prime Minister, and Roger said he was monitoring me. Well, I was monitoring him too, because we would have left our corridors where we normally would have meetings at Bigo's office and stayed back then in the event if the Prime Minister didn't move. We was having conversation with the Prime Minister. It wasn't CPO we was engaging with at the time. And the fact is, and when Camilla said something, Ms. Bissessa said something, I look at it, and that will resonate with me. When Ms. Bissessa would have said to Roger, you know where's your problem? You can't get me to do what you want. And this is the behavior of that comrade.
There was a day in which a whole team, including myself, was around with her, planning to go to this meeting. They were all at the office of the Prime Minister, and she said she got up in the morning saying, "I will do it. I'll go on my own. You all stay here, and let me go on."
And that is a fact that occurred, Andy. That occurred, and Comrade Roger, when we were supposed to get up and walk, that is the decision taken. But no, you feel at that meeting, if Comrade Prentice had decided to sit down to see if he could still lobby with the Prime Minister, you feel they would have accepted that? But that is not what we agree on. This is how these comrades operate. And then today, after you beat up, make up a mannequin, put marijuana in her mouth, cigarette in her mouth, in the mannequin mouth, put alcohol on her chest and so on. Today, the same colleague, you hear today, it's a shame and disgrace that he now believes he could go back and whisper two things in Ms. Bissessa's ear, and he could win Ms. Bissessa's support. I want to tell Roger that ain't going to happen. That in a green donkey he ain't going to see. They are betrayers. They are deceitful people. They are hypocrites to this country. Let them look and see what the numbers has been over the last 5 years. If Roger not seeing, Andy, 4 years ago I went Faizabad, and I sent a message to one and all. Andy, I went down there with a bag of balls. Andy, during my speech that morning,
you mean like tennis balls?
Tennis ball, wind balls. Yeah. I went there with that, and I would have said to them, get some balls, Andy. Because none of these comrades want to wake up and stand up and tell Roger to get off. I want to ask this morning, Ozzy. I want to ask Ozzy. Warwick. I want to ask this morning if Ozzy Warwick knows, because I hear them running about how arrogant and ignorant Dr. Keith Rowley is. I want to ask Ozzy Warwick if he knows anybody else more ignorant and arrogant than Dr. Rowley. I leave that for Warwick to digest, because these comrades are deceitful and they hypocrite. And you see Comrade Lambert, I never disrespected Comrade Lambert. Comrade Lambert took a position under UNC. I never once see it as a betrayal. He made a choice, and that is his rights.
But he's a UNC.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, sir. I want to leave with this question, go back on it, the extent to which there is no fear of a revolt from in your own shop about this.
Andy, Michael Prentice, the President General, and the rest of the executive members are firm in our resolve that we do what is right in the interests of our members. Firm, no wavering whatsoever that any mistake or anything unwarranted was done. These are guys with bad intent. And I'm saying this again. The OWTU today at the industrial court, 0, 0, 0. And the appeal. Let them tell the rest of the listening public how they arrive at getting 0, 0 at the industrial court. I rest.
Michael Prentice, thank you very much, leader of the Amalgamated Workers Union in Trinidad and Tobago. We take a break. When we come back, the Newsday poll and other things on the other side of this edition of the program. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to the program. Well, moments from now, a discussion with an advocate for the youth in Trinidad and the young in Trinidad and Tobago, Nikolai Edwards. We'll get to him in a moment. But now let's take a look at the Newsday poll, the question and the responses. And the question was, why is Independence Day important to you? And here's some of the responses. It's a holiday. That's just one response. Not in this time. We feel like slaves waiting for the rich to distress our life. That's another response. What about people who they met here and killed them to bring Africans here to the Caribbean and dropped off on different islands, separated families, and tell them you all are independent from each other? I'm African first, born here, living in Trinidad. And the final response, it reminds us of how we have used our votes to oppress ourselves for decades. So that's the response to the question, why is Independence Day important to you? We move now to our next guest, Mr. Nikolai Edwards, and he's put out a question to us. How are we treating with the young people at the age of 60? That's the anniversary we celebrated yesterday as we marked Independence Day, 1962 to now. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And on the occasion of our 60th year of independence, the anniversary, I want to wish you and the rest of Trinidad and Tobago a happy independence.
Okay, so let's get into it. What, for the rationale for the question and how you see it.
Sure. The fact is that Independence Day is supposed to have a significant meaning in the lives of each and every Trinbagonian, and it so does in my life, because it reminds me of the fact that Trinidad and Tobago has made so much progress over the course of 60 years. But of course, we beg the question, has that been enough? And the fact is that many citizens across Trinidad and Tobago, Independence Day just simply does not have any meaning toward them. And we can't blame them, because the fact is you have parents who are contemplating right now how they are going to prepare for the new school term with their children expected to go back out to school. You have persons who were laid off during the pandemic and still can't catch themselves, victims of crime, and the list goes on and on. So Independence Day does not necessarily occupy the hearts and minds of many citizens, and a big reason for that is because of a lack of education, I think, inside and outside of the education system.
When you say education, you mean about what it means, what independence means and what it should mean?
Yeah, and even beyond that, Trinidad and Tobago's culture, because many persons still don't understand our cultural identity. We would have had academics who would have pronounced on this over the course of years, but the fact is that we still have systemic issues in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it comes to issues of race, whether it comes to that whole concern about whether Tobago should have its autonomy and so forth. There are long-standing issues, I think, in society that we continue to leave unaddressed. And it was my hope that this government would have been able to at least tackle those concerns, because we saw a thrust in certain respects by this government, if we're being fair, to preserve cultural relics and so forth, the Magnificent Seven and so on. But it goes much deeper than that. How can we have Trinidad and Tobago's legacy live on in the hearts and minds of citizens, both at home and abroad? And I think that we have not yet quite pulled together the skill set, put down party politics and other divisions to really answer those questions and define what it is exactly to be Trinbagonian.
Yeah, you give some props, as the young people say, to the current administration for, I think the Prime Minister was just recently again restating the value to us of some of these legacy properties and buildings and landmarks around the country.
Yes.
And you talk about why you think that is important.
Yeah, it's very important, because the fact is we have to leave something for future generations. The young person who would come up, let's say 20 years from now, should have access to the knowledge and the experience of what it is really to be Trinbagonian. When we think about programs such as Best Village, that is such a powerful program, and I think that it is understated. It is not given the kind of attention necessary, because the fact is, I myself am a product of Best Village, and because of that, I think that I got a better understanding of what it is to be Trinbagonian and the diversity that exists in society. But many young people today don't have that experience, because we're not putting enough of a focus on extracurricular activities, or at least general education about Trinidad and Tobago. I would have loved to see even the lead up to the Independence Day celebrations really being given the kind of reverence it deserves. The fact is, Andy, that you have had columnists, persons who would have written to the editor, called out to the government asking, well, what are we doing for this milestone, this Diamond Jubilee? And I felt as though it was only coming down to the end, when those cries started to get louder, that the government recognized, hey, Independence Day is coming up. We should do something. So we got some hurried events, and they serve their purpose. And I'm grateful that those things happen, even at the level of the presidency. But we should have had a year of celebration, or a year of activities, which would have been focused so much on citizen education, civics, understanding what it is to be Trinbagonian, our history, our background. And I just feel as though not enough emphasis was placed on that. So for many, the 31st of August is just another day.
Yeah, well, in fact, you spot on that point to a great extent, because I think the Express wrote an editorial a couple of weeks ago, which was just a couple of weeks ago, saying, well, asking, well, what are we doing? Hey, what are we doing for this anniversary? Nothing had been announced. There was no sense of what was being planned as to what
and when you compare that to places such as Barbados, we saw a huge celebration that attracted international attention. Of course, they had their now national hero Rihanna coming to the island, but we could have had some kind of program to call back some of our natives who would have gone abroad to come and espouse upon the population information or just sharing really experiences, trying to motivate the population. There would have been so many things that we could have done. And as opposed to now at this juncture saying what we could have done, let's look at what we should do. I think from this point onward, we really, as a country, as a collective, should really band together and decide what the next 60 years of Trinidad and Tobago's existence would look like. In 60 years' time, who knows, we may, unfortunately, see Tobago pulling away from Trinidad and Tobago. And if that's not something we want to see, then we have to start putting things in place from now to ensure that that does not happen. But the fact is, right now, we need people coming together, saying what we as a people want to see for Trinidad and Tobago, because I think those kinds of decisions have traditionally been taken by the present government, by the government of the day, and it should not just be left to the government of the day, but rather to the people. Let's call on civil societies, let's call on the academics, let's call on all of these people, these men and women, both at home and abroad, to come together and chart a course for Trinidad and Tobago, because if not, some dark days are ahead.
Yeah, I would like to get an expansion on that, but because in fact I wrote something last week saying that I think we are not in a good place now socially and politically and economically. But I want to go back on the Tobago question. You mentioned it twice that you think that the question of Tobago autonomy is going to roar in a way that it hasn't thus far.
Yeah, the fact is that you have in Tobago the PDP, and we have seen their approach really, which is Tobago first, and rightfully so, because that was the mandate overwhelmingly that they were given over the sister isle. And if they are able to continue with that agenda of putting Tobago first, even beyond Trinidad and Tobago, then that is cause for concern. The discourse should not be about how can we see a separation of the two islands, but rather a joining or a closer knit bond. So I have always felt as though autonomy is not the answer. It's really a matter of how can we serve the needs of Tobagonians to ensure that they feel a part of this beautiful Twin Island Republic. It should never be us and them. I consider myself very much Tobagonian as I am Trinidadian, and many other Trinbagonians adopt that same approach. But we really need to see that coming out in terms of the discourse by our leaders, that unity talk. It should not be a situation of they and us, but rather how can both administrations here, central government and the THA, work together in the interest of strengthening Trinidad and Tobago. And I think even the president has an important role in facilitating that conversation, but that's left to be seen.
What do you think that role should be for her?
Well, so the president, in my respectful view, is really there to keep the country together, to ensure that we have that motivation, that guiding light, that way forward, articulating the desires of the people outside of a political kind of tenor, because of course we know the office of the president is expected to be insulated from politics to some degree, but it doesn't take away even from the individual who is holding that office to say, as the leader of the country, this is a path forward that we should be taking. And I think that that has been lacking from the presidency in a meaningful and a tangible way. We have seen from time to time some initiatives from the presidency, and I really appreciate that bandstand, roving bandstand celebrations. But we need to do a lot more than that. And I think the population wants to hear from the president more often and some more tangible things that we can do as a population, because sitting in that seat, I would imagine you have a bird's eye view of how things operate across the country, and even those kind words or a message or so forth could really pull the country together in its darkest hour.
Yeah, I'm talking a bit about your politics. You had you're the leader of a party, and you made a contest and an election passed, and so on. This time you're going to team up with another side.
Sure. Yes, sure. So I'm also holding on in that position of Deputy Political Leader of the National Transformation Alliance, the NTA. And this dual holding of the role, I know it's something that is not... Trinbagonians aren't accustomed to it. It's something new, but the fact is that both political entities share political ideologies. We see philosophical and practical issues that we both could collaborate on. And so this is the coming together of that which the population has been asking for over the past couple of years, a coming together of political entities, of alternative parties. So this is just the start. The Progressive Party, which I lead as political leader, has agreed to team up with the NTA, and as a result of that, I hold the function of deputy political leader of the NTA while still holding on and pushing the Progressive Party. So it's not a competing situation. We're not competing going into any election moving forward. We rather see ourselves stronger together, and answering, of course, the call of the people of Trinidad and Tobago for political leaders, for political institutions to come together, not for the purpose of fighting the red and the yellow, but rather providing better governance, which we know we can provide.
Yeah, and there's no conflict of thought or of approach or philosophy among the constituent elements.
So those were things... because this would have been a work in progress over the course of months, discussions being had, determining who would be some of the best members to be on this team moving forward. And we have found so much commonality. And at the end of the day, the thing that really brings us together is Trinidad and Tobago first, because it's not a matter of who should be the leader and who should do this and who should do that. It's a matter of how can we all come together to really make this country as great as we know it can be and put it on a trajectory. Because we all want the same thing, Andy. I am not pursuing this path because I am in love with political office or anything of that sort, but as a young person who has not been given really the opportunity to contribute in a consistent way moving forward, and like many other young people, we just simply want to see the country move forward. So for the longest while, let's say if this government or past governments had given the kind of opportunity to not just myself, but to other young people, we would not find ourselves in a situation where the population is as dissatisfied as it currently is. We would have long passed this stage to a point where nation building would have been the order of the day. But the fact is, many people feel locked out of the political process, not simply as a voting public, but rather how can they engage to develop this Twin Island Republic. We see so many things happening around the world, so many developments. We have a population who I think is not devoid of ideas, and we really need to translate that into practical steps that each and every citizen feel a part of this country.
All right, thank you very much, my friend Nikolai Edwards.
Thanks for having me.
We will continue to talk as is necessary as time goes by. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
We'll take a break. We'll come back in a moment. Stay with us. This is AM Prime on this Thursday morning, the day after.
Rise to the occasion with Cocky Lucky, exclusively sold at the Big Mike Wellness Center.
Number 19 Market Street in Aruka. Contact 346-26 or 338-7775.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we
inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion.
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time. Welcome back to the program. Let's continue a look around the region. Now we go to St. Lucia, where there's a story from HTS News Force about a man dying off one of the coasts of that island. Take a look at this.
The best friend of St. Lucia's latest drowning victim claims that he was close to safety on shore when tragedy struck. Richardson O'Brien, alias Koshi, is suspected to have drowned after he went for a swim during a boat ride on Sunday afternoon at Anse Lavady Beach, Canaries. Philbert Smith claims that he sprang into action after his friend failed to resurface.
He jumped in the water and was swimming on shore, he and somebody else. So the guy reached on shore. Koshi was almost on shore already, almost on shore. And they're looking at him. He waved his arm, checking us, and Koshi just started swimming again. And then all of a sudden I see he went down in the water. When he went back in the water, I see like 40 seconds and I see he come back up. So I decided that's not normal. So I just take off my clothes and I jump in the water, try to look for him.
Koshi's body would be discovered an hour after he submerged.
About a minute to get to him, I can't find him nowhere. You know, so when I am looking around, cannot find him. They send me a diving glass from the boat and a flipper, looking around. Went back on the boat, make a phone call to get someone to come and help us look for him. A boat came, looking around, then they saw him under the water. But that had been about an hour afterwards we found him. By the time I bring him on shore, CPR and everything, an hour, there's no chance. He has already gone.
The grieving best friend says the tragic death is an immense loss for loved ones.
He will always say, guys, I will make you guys get on top, and always try his best. But I cannot find another friend, another brother like this guy again in my life. I don't think there's any of my friends that will treat me the way Koshi treated me. By the time I know him, he was the best guy ever.
Richardson Koshi O'Brien was well known in the sporting fraternity. He was a Viewfort North football coach and managed a number of teams. Law enforcement is probing the suspected drowning in Canaries.
All right, that's St. Lucia. We come down to Grenada now, where they are still handing out articles or instruments of appointment to people in the parliament. 3 new senators have had their instruments of appointment issued to them. We have more in this report from the Grenada Information Service.
Governor General Her Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade on Monday handed over instruments of appointment to 3 senators who will take the oath of office when the new session of Parliament opens. Katisha Douglas will represent the opposition, while Roderick Sinclair and Andre Lewis return for another stint representing the agriculture sector and labor respectively. GIS spoke with the appointees, who are optimistic that their engagements with government in the upper house will bring positive benefits to citizens. Both Lewis and Sinclair believe that legislative and other procedures that were previously started will continue and be completed under this administration, in keeping with its transformation agenda.
This is an opportunity for us to continue our struggle for especially legislative amendments. Certainly, we look forward to the implementation of the court decision on the pension, as the government has agreed. So that's a major matter for us that is expected to bear fruit, certainly in terms of the retroactive payment by the end of November. And all those who continue to retire, that is those who are qualified to receive the state pension under 1958, will continue to do so, and that's extremely important. Certainly, one look forward to the regularization of our workers. As you know, the aspect of having workers permanently temporary has been a major matter over the many years. It's a matter that unions have been struggling against, especially the public sector unions, the Public Workers Union, the Greendot Union of Teachers, and there are some challenges in the private sector. Certainly these will be pursued. We look forward to the now ruling party that has formed the government implementing its commitment to regularize all workers. We look forward to working hand in hand as we pursue our different interests.
I'm ready because I've been preparing many years ago through my different involvement, and I would say that don't expect too much of difference stepping back. We are stepping forward, building on what I've done before. As I was saying this morning, I've learned a lot, and so there are different techniques and approaches that I will continue to work in. I have an unfinished business within the parliament that I left when the parliament was closed. So, for example, we speak about the review of the MNIB. That has been a motion that was already on the table. I also had another motion to deal with the whole issue of genetic resources and how farmers and fishers, and of course the country can get more resources and money from those type of things. So already there is a head start. I expect us to engage the government, to listen to the farmers as I previously done. Of course there is great expectation from the farming and fishing community as to the approach of this new government. And so not only that the expectations would be high, but the pushing to ensure that we get things done and the transformation that is promised is achieved.
Newcomer Katisha Douglas says her representation in the Senate will be centered on a people-first agenda.
I have a passion for people, a genuine passion, I must say. Over the past years in my career, I've connected with several people, different personality types, of course. So, you know, there are no boundaries when coming to that. But I have handled it very well, connecting with people, giving them advice. So I want to be able to do it on a wider scale. And I can only do that through politics. I'm very excited, I must say, for the opportunity. And with this opportunity, I owe it to my country and the people to serve them to the best of my ability.
And this takes us up to the top of the hour. We have the news break. On the other side of that, this is one of the things that we continue to do differently in the airwaves here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's what makes us special. On the other side of this, an interview with the ambassador for Ukraine to Trinidad and Tobago, Sergei Kizlytsia. He's here. We'll talk with him. Stay with us.
Rise to the occasion with Cocky Lucky, exclusively sold at the Big Mike Wellness Center.
Number 19 Market Street in Aruka. Contact 346 or 338 7775.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Well, welcome back to the program. As I said before we got to the break, this is a big one. This is a special one. In our midst now, Ambassador Sergei Kyslytsya. He is the Ukrainian ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. He's based at the UN in New York, and he's here. We're going to talk with him about why and how come. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, so the last time we spoke, you were at the UN, and I was doing that was a couple of months ago. We were talking about in the height of the aggression on your country by Russia. It's fascinating that you're here. I want to start with asking you, how come you decided to come?
Well, first of all, I'm very much honored to be invited to the celebration of the Jubilee. It's amazing to see how the nation progresses, and especially since we all were hit by COVID and all those terrible events of COVID, and then the situation around the world is even more complicated because of the war of Russia on Ukraine. That has consequences that reach far beyond our region, and you can see the situation with food insecurity, energy crisis. But nevertheless, my government decided that I should be here because it's my duty to celebrate with you guys. We also celebrated our independence on the 24th of August. So we really know what it means to be independent.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit about your independence 24 years ago, the road from where you were to that, and a bit about the road between there and where you are now.
Right, where we are now being hit by the forces in Moscow that are essentially neo-colonial forces. They would like to enslave the Ukrainian nation once again. They would like us to be part of the Russian Empire, and I think that is totally unacceptable. I mean, we worked very hard to get our independence in 1991, and ever since we were very determined to build our own future, our own society, according to the wish of the people. So once again, being a recently independent nation, our independence is twice as short as yours, but we still have to fight for it. And you are blessed, guys, that you live in a relatively peaceful environment where you may not have immediate threat, but who have imagined only 6 months ago that my nation could be hit literally by the foreign invasion, that thousands and thousands of my citizens could be killed in the course of that terrible invasion.
What do you say to those people, and there are some of us in Trinidad and Tobago, in this part of the world, who see no issue with the Russian aggression?
Oh, it's not true. It's not true. I may disagree with that statement because in today's globalized world, you can't really imagine that the price of your wheat, milk is independent. I mean, the world markets are dependent and interdependent. Let me tell you that there are countries around the world that depend 50-70% on the supply of food from Ukraine. Lebanon, 70% of food supply. African countries, some of the countries, 50% of food supply. Ukraine has the share of the world market, if we speak, for example, about sunflower oil, 55%. We are exporting 40 million metric tons of grain every year. And in the middle of the invasion, before we reached that agreement in Istanbul, we had 21 million tons of grain that was ready to be shipped to Africa, to Asia, to other countries. This week we are shipping grain to Ethiopia, which is very much hit by and you know, there are millions, literally millions of people in Africa, in other parts of the world, who live in conditions of starvation. And we should not really turn the weaponizing by Russia of food supply.
And you think that situation has worsened because of
I mean, the situation was there even before, but it was dramatically escalated as a result of the war, because Ukraine is a major player on a food market, on a global food market. And then this situation with energy supply, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, if Europeans paid like 200, 300 for gas before the war, now they pay 2,500 for gas. And it has a dramatic effect, and it has a multiplying effect. And even if you are 10,000 miles away from Europe, then being a nation that imports so much from other markets, you are necessarily paying much more. And I don't think that it helps your government and your nation to progress with the objectives that your people have established as objectives.
Yeah. What do you say to the people who take into account the reports which say that there are, shall I say, clusters of Ukrainians in different parts of the country who seem to favor Russia taking over their country?
No, it's not true, absolutely. If you look at the polls, 93% of Ukrainians support the army, the government, and the president. If there were pockets of population in the eastern part of Ukraine that historically were closer to Russia because of the geographic...
And where the majority of that part of the population is Russian or people...
No, they're not Russian. They would speak Russian as a language of preference, but they were Ukrainian citizens. But what happens right now, the most hit parts of Ukraine by Russian invasion are the parts predominantly populated by so-called Russian-speaking Ukrainian citizens. I will give you an example. In the course of the invasion, there were more than 200 churches destroyed by the Russians. Out of 200 churches and religious institutions, more than 170 belong to the Russian Orthodox Church. So when Putin says we come to liberate the Russian-speaking Ukraine, why in the world you hit and raze to the ground the institutions, the objects that primarily serve the interest of the Russian-speaking...
Of those people.
Right, exactly. I mean, to imagine the tragedy and to visualize it, there is a city of Mariupol in the south east of Ukraine. During the Second World War, there were 20,000 citizens who were killed there. By the end of spring, there were 30,000 citizens killed, and the city was totally razed to the ground. So imagine the devastation, even compared to the greatest war in the history of Europe. And then imagine yourself being there and having your family totally killed, your house totally destroyed. Will you, while keeping the Russian language as a language of preference, have any positive sentiments to the invaders and to the colonizers? Even if the war is over next Monday, it will take many generations of Ukrainian citizens to come to terms that there is a neighbor to our east and to our north, that we can have normal relationship. And you know it very well. I don't want to draw parallels, but the nature of the human memory is such that you cannot change it by imposing a new government or a new parliament or new policy line. People will remember now for decades, if not centuries, what happened today. And I think that it is a dramatic historical failure of Putin, because he totally destroyed the last remnants of a positive attitude and vision of Russia. And now this imperialistic, neo-colonialist attitude of Russia totally destroyed the perspectives of developing relationships.
Yeah, what do you say to those people who seem to say, well, if they don't totally support him, they believe that somehow what he's doing is in his country's interest because of this fear of NATO spreading its wings around Russia, or and therefore that is something that he's trying to push back on, and that explains this aggression?
Well, that's a narrative that he tries to impose, to feed in. In general, I have to say that we live in the era of fake narratives and propaganda. But we have to judge whatever we hear not by verbal package or packaging. We have to see the actions. Can you name me any war of aggression on the part of NATO? Has NATO invaded any country?
Not at all.
No, there was a Warsaw Treaty during the Soviet Union that invaded Prague in August 1968. There was the Soviet Union that invaded Budapest in 1956. It was Russia that invaded Moldova. It was Russia that invaded Georgia. It was Russia that invaded Ukraine in 2014 and tried to annex Crimea. It is Russia that's playing the very dangerous role in Syria. It is Russia that sends the mercenaries to Central African Republic. So we have to judge myself, yourself, Russian president, Ukrainian president, not only by words, by the record of actions. And as a result, he wanted to prevent the expansion of NATO. What happened? Historically neutral Sweden, that was neutral for centuries, is so scared of Russia now that the only option they see, the nation of Sweden, is to join NATO. Finland was neutral for decades after the World War II. They decided to join NATO. Ireland significantly reviews its policy. Even Switzerland, which is a cornerstone of neutrality, is so afraid of the events that they have very slow and difficult and painful.
So his action has backfired in a significant way.
It basically backfires. And you know what? Putin has taken away so many chances for the Russian people to develop as a democratic, prosperous nation.
But he wants to rebuild the Soviet Union.
He wants to rebuild the Soviet Union by destroying his nation. So it has no future. I mean, there is no way whatsoever Trinidad becomes a colony again. There is no way whatsoever Ukraine becomes a colony again, because people simply do not like it, the very idea of it.
What would you say that is driving the strength of the Ukrainian pushback and opposition to the war, this sense that people don't want to go back to being a colony of anybody or a satellite of anybody?
We enjoyed continued slow and painful, not without mistakes, not without bad presidents, but we enjoyed a very continued period of progressive development. The last year was the best year in terms of economic development. Our approximation with Europe is incredible. We just got a status of a candidate country for the membership of the European Union. So that progress and that visible progress next to Russia posed an existential threat to Russia, because Russia is a dictatorial state. In the course of the last 20 years, we had 5 presidents, because people were electing new presidents, In the course of the same time, Russia still has the same president. And that president designed a system where his system is built on total control.
And where he's guaranteed to be there for life, for the rest of his life.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm sure that in any democratic society, no matter how we may admire our leadership, we would not accept that we are led by a sort of, permanent kings or queens. So we need to change our leadership in a progressive course of elections.
In the early days of the aggression, it appeared, at least from some of the reports that were available here, from the international news focus on it, for instance, it appeared at a point that he was focusing on taking the city Kyiv with these maneuvers to get around it and circle the city. That didn't work. It hasn't worked.
And it will never work. I mean, it's a fundamental failure because he failed. I may assume, however, it's my personal assumption that the system is so sick that even his intelligence was afraid to report to him the real state of affairs and the real shape, or rather bad shape, of his army, the real strengths of Ukrainian nation. Because what many intelligence services failed to do, not only the Russian one, including the Western, because they failed to factor in not only the numbers of aircraft or howitzers or whatever, but also to factor in the degree of maturity of the nation and the degree of the dedication of every citizen to defend its freedom. And that totally changed the state of affairs. It was a game changer, as they say, and after 3, 4, 1 week after the invasion, there were so many partners of Ukraine that were determined to help Ukraine because they see it as an assault on the entire democratic world. And if you look what happened in the General Assembly on the 2nd of March, when 141 nations, including Trinidad and Tobago, voted for the resolution that named Russia as an aggressor state. There were only 4 countries that supported Russia, including Syria and North Korea. And the countries...
China.
China didn't vote against. China abstained.
Right.
So the thing is that in New York, if you use the optics of the United Nations, this situation is seen not only, and probably even more, not as an aggression on Ukraine per se, it is seen as an aggression on the very fundamentals of the global security. There are more than 160 countries around the world that would never be able, due to the natural objective reasons, to have armies or economies that would allow them to defend themselves in case of a similar aggression. So the only hope for them is to have a system that is based on the rule of law and respect to the international law. So if the Charter of the United Nations is so brutally violated, what is the result for your country, for example, in case of need? And then another thing, this war destructs so much resources, financial resources, human resources, while we all need to fight things and challenges like climate change, for example. And climate change poses a global threat. And if we all cannot organize ourselves, because we have to divert money, we have to divert budgets, we have to divert human resources to other needs, if we do not organize ourselves almost immediately, in 10 years from now, the threat of water scarcity in some parts of the world and rising sea level in other parts of the world will constitute a problem of existential nature to the entire world.
Yeah, I want to ask you, how is it that Turkey is the country that gets to play the role in trying to mediate at this. But before we go there, I'm going to ask you about, in the early days of the aggression, there were these images going around the world with Black and African people in Ukraine who were sort of pushed off of buses and other transportations trying to get out, and there are people, including people in Trinidad and Tobago, saying, look at that, and then they want our support.
Right.
How do you respond to that?
Look, well, first of all, we have to go back to pre-war times. And in the pre-war times, Ukraine was offering so many opportunities to people from Africa, from India, from the developing world. From the developing world, not only, by the way. And we had thousands and thousands, we had more than 10,000 Indian students, for example. I mean, of course, in India, you will always have rich people who would go to Harvard or Cambridge or whatever, but you will always have people who would like to have quality education for much less money. So Ukraine was a welcoming country to many, and it was a real tragedy because not only millions of Ukrainians have to flee to Europe, but along with them, many third world countries have to go. And what happened at the border, unfortunately, that in the immediate aftermath, it was a paperwork problem because Ukrainians have freedom of free travel to Europe, while some third countries may not have this freedom of travel. So the Ukrainian border guard would not let at the land crossing the third country nationals to find themselves in that stretch of land between Europe and Ukraine, because they would not be admissible. So the immediate action was required on the part of European countries, so that would waive visa requirements or immediately apply international humanitarian law provisions that would allow the refugees to enter safe countries. But I always maintain the position that all instances of racial discrimination should be examined and investigated. But
so it wasn't the case of Ukrainians, white Ukrainians, trying to deny black people the same routes to escape as they.
No, sir, I do not agree with that. I have never heard any confirmation, including from my peer ambassadors in New York, from those countries, that the third countries' nationals were specifically targeted because of their ethnicity. What I always heard, that there were bureaucracy problems with allowing them to enter European countries without visas.
Ambassador Sergei Kizlytsya, we could talk for a long time again, but we have to leave it there for now. Thank you very much, and continue to enjoy what we have to offer here in Trinidad and Tobago. I know that the support of the government of this country has been important to you, and so you're showing some.
Well, thank you very much, and I would like to avail of this opportunity to congratulate you people once again on the independence, and I wish you many, many decades and centuries of prosperous existence. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your stay here.
Thank you.
Are we going to take a break? Come back in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you very much.
Rise to the occasion with Cocky Lucky, exclusively sold at the Big Mike Wellness Center.
Number 19 Market Street in Aruka. Contact 346-26 or 338-7775.
What's your choice? Choice Optical. That's my choice.
Enjoy your independence. The Retail Warehouse Christmas Village is open. This independence, get a massive 50% off selected items while stocks last.
You can become a highly trained emergency response professional that can operate in the health, corporate, industrial, and educational sectors. Tech EMS courses include EMT, AEMT, paramedic, BLS, ACLS, PALS, First Aid, CPR, AED, and other courses.
Register early for September 2022. When you need land, a home, or investment property, step-by-step property consultancy and management can help you. Happy Independence.
Nuance Security and Solar Systems Limited. ensuring value with renewable energy solutions for all.
We celebrate with TNT, Medical Associates Private Hospital, offering cutting-edge technology for all our customers' health issues. Happy Independence from Motor Care and Maintenance MCM Limited for all your vehicle repairs, diesel and gas. Approved Vehicle Inspection Station. The Guide family has been serving TNT for over 70 years. From the management and staff of JE Guide Funeral Home and Crematorium. Happy Independence. Independence greetings from J&A Supermarket and Deli on the Avenue for your grocery items, market items, grab-and-go meals, plus mobile phones and accessories. Celebrate and enjoy life in your fully electric and hybrid Mini. Happy Independence TNT from LaFast Motors.
That's our broadcast for this Thursday morning. We thank you for watching. We thank our guests. We tell you that Talking Point is on the other side of 8 o'clock, but between now and then, much to share with you. We leave you with these images, though, of the CN Tower, the iconic CN Tower in Toronto being lit up in the national colors of Trinidad and Tobago, marking our 60th anniversary of independence yesterday. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We see you tomorrow.